Hi, my name is Veronica, and today I'm going to be reading one-star reviews of books that I really like. So this can be anywhere from a 4 to a 5-star read for me. I've been seeing this circulate around a lot, and I just thought that this would be such a fun video idea. Starting out, I'm going to do God of Wrath. This is one of my favorite books in the Legacy of God series, and I just want to see what people have to say about it. So, starting out, we have, I truly hated everything about this book. I wish I could rip my eye sockets out and get someone to scoop my brain out so I can forget every detail about this god-awful book. Someone help me. That is crazy. When you literally remove your eye sockets, your eyes? That's crazy. No, this book was good. I had such a good time. And I just find that so funny that somebody really, it was that bad to them that they felt like that's what they had to do. I can't. That one's freaking hilarious. Then we have, this is actually pretty recent. That's funny. God, I am not your strongest soldier. Oh my gosh. No, again, I thought this book was so good. This was the third book in the Legacy of God series, and God of Malice is what got me back into dark romance. So reading this book and having not liked God of Pain, I just love that there was like such an interesting like storyline going on throughout it. And even though it's pretty similar to a lot of other books, I just really enjoyed it. So just people not liking it is so funny. Now I feel like this is real. This person said, if you read one of Rena Kent's books, you basically read them all. And I agree with that. I feel like a lot of Legacy of Gods honestly is just the books repeating themselves just from different perspectives. But I learned to space them out, and I feel like that's what helped me a lot in liking them. But I understand where this person's coming from. this one, this one says, he's a grad student. How does he also have the time to be a stalker too? I mean, truly, like, none of them were going to class. I don't understand how you were able to sit there and, I guess, maintain decent grades while you're, like, chasing after people. They're releasing anything these days. This was from 3 years ago, but this person said that they were releasing anything these days. Okay, I think that's enough for God of Wrath, but those are pretty funny. Okay, next up I'm going to do Corrupt, which is the first book in the Devil's Night series. Unpopular opinion, I actually really liked Corrupt. I thought it was a good first book. Granted, I've only read 2 books in the series, but I liked Corrupt more than Hideaway. And I just heard so many people dislike this book, so I just felt like there were going to be good 1-star reviews, and I'm very curious to see what people say about that. Also, considering that like it's an older book, I feel like there are going to be some very interesting opinions. So let's see. This one already. 1 star. I want to take 2 knives and plunge them into my eyes for trying to read this book. This book was getting worse and worse the more I read it. Rika was awful. Michael was shit. This whole book is a disaster. I hate everyone. They should die. Oh my gosh. No, I didn't think it was that serious. Wow. I'm not going to read this entire one because it's a very long review. But just starting out and saying that they literally want to, oh my gosh, it's that bad for them? No. See, and this is what's crazy is because, again, I've heard so many people don't like this book, and I was definitely an outlier. I enjoyed it. I like that there was a little mystery subplot in this book, which I didn't expect literally at all. And I love too that there was a past perspective of trying to understand why these 4 guys were getting upset with people that placed them in jail. And you start out with Michael. And though Michael was not my favorite character, I do feel like he wasn't a decent guy. Really, none of them are. It wasn't to the point of me wanting to plunge knives into my eyeballs. No, it wasn't that serious for me. This was very interesting. This person said, don't mind the rating. This is my favorite book. But they gave it a 1 star. I just love everyone so much. Another girl with no personality. Dude whose love language is violence. The 2 guys with no personality. The best part about this book, it's not only bad, it's also boring. And then at the bottom they put highest rating 0 stars. So that's a deceiving rating. I feel like I can kind of agree with that, the no personality with the girl. I definitely got like victim mentality from her, and not that like she didn't go through things, but I just feel like she was so easily trying to get Michael's attention, and Michael was so obviously not interested in her, and just really the amount of time and effort she put into, I don't feel like that was reciprocated from him. So I feel like I can agree with the no personality part, which is pretty funny. But again, I did still really like this book. I gave it a 4 star. I was really more there for like the mystery element of the book, but that, that was pretty funny. Okay, I feel like I can agree with this one. This one says, decent smut, but everything else set women's rights back 100 years. And I feel like that's the dilemma with dark romance. Don't get me wrong, I love me some good dark romance, but there are a lot of questionable things that happen within these stories, obviously because there are darker elements going on. And there were some things in there that I feel like I could agree on would make you very wary of reading it. And I could say that I agree with this person. That's interesting. I didn't think I would agree with people that were giving this book a 1 star. That's funny. Oh, I saw another good one. Gave this book for recycling because it's a waste of paper. Hello. Save trees. But this person read it in 1 day. So that's interesting. Save the trees. Save it for the trees. The book was that bad you gotta recycle it? No. No. See, some people are just funny. Truly. I mean, that's good you want to save the trees. That's good you want to sit there and recycle. Okay, and I think that's enough for Corrupt as well. I feel like the dark romance ones are so hard to read and react to because it could just be that somebody doesn't like the story, or the topics that are being talked about make them uncomfortable, or they don't like how they're explained, which I understand. Again, those are really good because those were dark romance books that I enjoyed, and I wanted to see how people felt about it, especially giving it a 1 star because then obviously you hated the book. And just seeing that a lot of people had very similar feelings for like God of Wrath and Corrupt. And these are like very popular, dark romance books and series. That's very interesting. Okay, next we're going to do City of Gods and Monsters, which is the first book in the House of Devils series. And I really, really enjoyed this book. I love Tyrion Castle. Oh my gosh, that guy. That's literally the definition of a guy that would do anything for the girl that he loves. And I think that he was such a good character. So I'll be very curious to see if the 1 stars are dealing with like the female main character not liking it, or the comparisons to Crescent City, which I saw, which funnily enough, I read the first book, House of Earth and Blood, and City of Gods and Monsters really, really close together last year, and was able to be able to say for myself whether or not I felt that they were similar. And I felt like they weren't similar for me personally. I felt like in the vein of them both being an urban romantasy, yes. Otherwise, I was like, no, I don't really see where you're coming from. Maybe the only other thing that I could have seen is that they both had a mystery subplot. But otherwise, I was like, no, I feel like these are 2 different stories. You're dealing with 2 different topics, and you have very vastly different characters. So I'll be curious the reason as to why people gave City of Gods and Monsters 1 star. So, starting out strong. This person put, this was Temu Crescent City, and no one can convince me otherwise. And then comparing City of Gods and Monsters to Temu, I literally can't, like that. Again, how do people come up with these things? That is so funny. No, and again, I just read these so close together. I felt like this was such a good book. Like I said, I really, really love the mystery subplot of this. I love like the development of the characters in this first story and really throughout the entire series. And just seeing that somebody said it's a Temu version. No, no. Oh, this one's interesting. So this one said, based on a quote, on some sleepless nights, the horns of the sinners became halos, and the streets felt like paradise. Oh my god, words cannot express how much I couldn't stand this book or the characters. Darian tried so hard to be dangerous and edgy, and that's honestly so embarrassing for him. Loren is utterly useless the whole time in a way that's so pathetic. I couldn't tell you why people feared him or why she was infatuated with this man. Are we seriously giving him brownie points because he told some man that she can wear whatever she wants? The bar is roasting far down in the pits. of hell. I had no idea this was an urban fantasy. But I do know is that it bootleg won a copy of both ACOTAR and Crescent City. Interesting. Interesting. That he wasn't dangerous and edgy? This is literally, what are they called? Dark Slayers? That's crazy. No, I felt like this guy was literally badass and was like, you know, like people up. That's crazy. No, and there was definitely urban fantasy elements, you know, the phones and them literally like having to deal with all these crazy things outside of their city. And I just am shocked that somebody would say they didn't think that Darian was edgy. Yeah, I was like, this guy, I understand why you're literally like the one that people are looking out for. Literally, you're sent out to get her for a bounty. Now, Loren being useless, oh, I understand that. She definitely gives like, this is a human in a world where there are, you know, vampires and werewolves and like, oh, what was me? Like, I can't protect myself. I can't agree with them on that. I can't agree with them on that. And I feel like that was definitely on purpose. I feel like it was meant to be like, I'm going to say to you, this is, what's the word I'm looking for? Damsel in distress. Definitely giving damsel in distress vibes. And I can agree with that part. I can agree with that part. In this first book. In this first book. Okay. This person put 1 out of 5. I think this book has a lot of promise, but it really, really fell flat. I think it can be described as Crescent City's younger and much worse sibling. I totally get what the book was going for, but it was way too drawn out. Being over 700 pages long, you would expect a plot that is tightly plotted and engaging. The thing is, we don't really know what the main plot is until at least 100 pages in. Unlike Crescent City, which had a murder mystery, this book opens up with a kidnapping and doesn't really build on that. A bunch of things happen at the very end, but a good 400 pages of this book is filler and slow moving. Pointless scenes. Okay. See, that's what I mean. Sometimes people make valid points within a 1 star. I will say that, again, I read this book a while ago, but I can agree that it did take a second to get into the plot of this book and like what the meaning of it was and why we were dealing with this and like why Loren had a bounty on her head. I understand that. For me, I don't feel like there was really filler information within at least this first book. And I did like the mystery subplot. I thought that the author did a really, really good job on that, and I enjoyed it. And then again, it's the fact that it's being compared to Crescent City, and those are 2 different books. So that's what I said. At least for me, I rated these the exact same rating. Crescent City, well, House of Earth and Blood, and City of Gods and Monsters. So I feel like I can't compare them in that way because I felt kind of the same about them. But that's interesting what they said about it taking about 100 pages for stuff to start happening. I can definitely say that I agree with that. I think I'm just going to read this very first part that this person said. It says, when your mom says we have Crescent City at home. When your mom says we have Crescent City at home. It's giving like when that other person said that this is the Temu version of Crescent City. Oh, this is just crazy. See, and I think the thing is too is because I don't really rate books 1 stars. If it ever got to that point, I would have DNF'd the book. So it's just interesting to see how, especially if you didn't like it, reading a book again that is literally 700 pages. Like this book, that's how thick it is. And they're saying that they read this entire thing and gave it a 1 star. Like, how do you put yourself through that if you didn't even like the book? There's no way I would do that. Now, granted, I did listen to the audiobook of this. The audiobook was so, so good. So I'm wondering if a lot of people read this physically and that's why they didn't like it. But for me, like I said, the audiobook was good. The murder mystery element was good. I love Darien Castle. So this is just, it's just interesting. And then I'm seeing a lot of these that say like DNF at 22%, 20%, 40%. So just not getting into the story, which I feel like that's so easy to happen, especially in like a fantasy book, especially when they're long. If you're reading through it and it's just not gripping you, it's just not catching your attention, then I can understand DNFing it. But again, I love this book. I thought it was so good. I'm literally on book 4. That's how much I've loved this series. And I just feel like every book outside of maybe book 2 got better with each book. And I just love like where the story's going. So again, that's just interesting to see that some people did. It sound like read the entire thing and gave it a 1 star. Okay, One of my favorite sports romance series, and you can't see it in frame, but it's the DC Star series, Face Off, which is the first book in this series. One of my favorite sports romance books I think I've probably ever read. I love Chelsea Quarto. I love this world. I love the characters. And honestly, I didn't expect a lot of 1 stars on this. I was just very curious to see if anybody didn't like it. And it looks like there are about 1,000 reviews that are 1 star, but that's out of 110,000. So I feel like that says a lot. I'm seeing a lot of 4 stars, and I gave this book a 5 star. So I'd be very curious as to why people gave it a 1. But I'm seeing DNF at 35%. I was bored for the whole time. I felt zero connection or chemistry between the main characters. So when they hooked up at 35%, I just didn't care. LOL. Underwhelming to say the least. Okay. Okay. I can understand that. Again, I read this a while ago. I don't feel like I remember them hooking up that early, but if they got it down to the percentage, then I believe you. I just really did. I felt like they had so much chemistry. I love that Emmy and Maverick were on the same team. That Emmy was paving the way for, females to be in a male-dominated industry. So if you don't know what this book is about, this is about Emmy, who is a hockey player. She ends up being the first female player ever to go into the National Hockey League and play with males. She ends up on the same team as Maverick, and Maverick is, I don't remember if he's their captain or not, but like they're butting heads in the beginning of the story, and he comes off as the stereotypical like jock, and he's a player, and just is not going to give people a chance. And for me, I felt like being able to see her come into this arena with so many guys and really holding her own and not letting them, steamroll over her or tell her that she wasn't a good player just because she was a girl. I love that. And even though it's obviously a thing that would never happen, I love that, Chelsea really tackled an issue that does happen with a lot of females of being in these male-dominated industries and not being taken seriously simply just because you're a female. So that had nothing to do with the chemistry, but I thought I would say that. But no, I thought that their chemistry was so good. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved where the story went. I loved the progression of their relationship. So I almost wonder if this person would have continued if they would have felt that way. But if they're not feeling the hookup in the beginning of that, I can understand that. Oh, this person got way further. They said DNF at 81%. And yes, I'm going to rate it because I deserve it after all that shit I went through. Hey, you know what? Honestly, props to you. That's what I said. I'm like, I feel like if you get a decent amount into a book and they said 81% and you're just not vibing with it, I feel like you have the right to rate it and give it that. Now again, I gave this a 5 star. So I'm very curious as to like why they gave it a 1 star and why they went all the way to 81%. So they said, this book is horrible. I'm shaking as I type these words because I'm so mad at myself. I should have known that I'm going to hate this book because I vividly remember being at 35% mark and just being so bored, I went to sleep instead. Okay. The story had so much potential. It's literally about a girl in an NHL, a woman in a sport. I can't believe how the author wasted all of her and my time by writing this horrendous romance instead of a powerful feminist one. She could have well, they missaid that, but she could have, I think they meant wrote it in a different style and still made it a romance novel. That's interesting that they said that. I felt like, again, that she did a very good job of portraying her in this industry and just what that would be like, dealing with people really just viewing you as a female and being able to say, like, hey, that's the reason that you don't understand hockey, and hey, that's the reason that you shouldn't be in the sport. So that's interesting that they felt at the 35% mark they weren't vibing with it and they kept going. And I feel like I see that a lot with these books that are popular or where you feel like it has potential and then you keep reading and it's just not for you and then you're like, oh, I should have DNF'd it at this point. And if they're at the 35% mark like this other person and they didn't like it then and then they kept going, that's interesting. I'm like, but then why did you keep going to 81%? Yeah, if you didn't like it at the 35% mark, I don't know how people do that either. I'm like, if I'm not vibing with it and I'm not even making it to the 35% mark, I'm going to be honest. Like, I know pretty early on if I'm not going to like a book, and then I'm DNFing that baby. I'm not going to keep going. So, honestly, props to them for going to 81%. I feel like I'm not sitting here and saying anything about people that are giving these books 1 stars. I feel like I'm agreeing with them. And then we have, okay, Maverick gave me a golden retriever vibe, and I'm not into that. You know what? That's fair. He literally is the definition of a golden retriever, straight up, in book form. Just, he is a golden retriever, and if that's not your vibe, that's simply not your vibe. I will say for me, it depends on the story. Sometimes, even in these sports romances, I don't want a golden retriever. I want them to have, I wouldn't even say depth. I want them to be more to them, and I don't necessarily need them being like, oh, I'm going to be really, really sweet to you, or oh, I'm going to remember all these things about you. Like, I'm not feeling like a guy is really doing that, if you know what I mean. I feel like they're remembering certain things, and then they're getting to know you, and it's not just, I'm starting out and I'm mean, and then, oh, I'm going to be the sweetest person. But for me in this book, I vibed with that. I thought, again, he was such a sweetheart, and just the development of their relationship was so good. So that's interesting that that was a reason that they gave it a 1 star. And again, that was recently. Okay. This one says, I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. Can't deal with the insta-lust vibes. How can you be obsessed and it feels... Oh wait, obsessed and in feels when you met 5 minutes ago. The lack of a build-up meant it felt like a bunch of words and not a real story and lacked chemistry, and so I wasn't invested. And then they said imagery was a problem too. Nothing but basic physical descriptions. Nothing to feel like the world they were in was real. That's interesting. Again, I find that so fascinating when that's a reason that people don't like it. They felt like there wasn't a lot of build-up. That's fascinating. Again, I felt like it did a good job of like bringing in the characters, introducing a lot of these people that were going to be on their teams that are in different positions and that end up subsequently getting books in the series, and just talking about like who they are as a team, what their role is on the team. Interesting. But like the insta-lust part, I feel like I can understand. That can seem like that was pretty fast, but I was invested in the characters, and I feel like that is a thing, is if you're not invested in the characters, if you're not invested in the story, then you're just simply not, you're not going to care. And if you're not going to care and it's in a sports romance and they're getting together like that, and that's like a lot of the book, I understand that. I understand that. And then the imagery being a problem, that's interesting. I will say this too, I do have, like, I find it really easy to imagine things. Like, they can just give me basic descriptions, and I can't remember if in that if it was a basic description or not. But they can just tell me, hey, like, they have, you know, red hair and they're tall, and I'm like, okay, she has red hair and she's tall, and I done already decided like what she looks like. And I will say sometimes within these books, I feel like some authors will not tell you what a character looks like in the beginning, so you're scrambling to decide what they look like, and you've already given them attributes. So again, I can't remember. She describes early on like what Emmy looks like. I just remember what she looks like. But that too, I feel like if you are so used to like picturing characters in books and you're not getting that description that you need, then that can make it hard. So again, I'm like, why am I agreeing with these people? That's nothing against the book. Like, I still love these books, but like, that's interesting that they're saying these are the reasons that, you know, they don't like it, and they're giving it a 1 star yet. And then I'm like, oh, I can understand that, but no, I gave this a 5 star. I need context on this one. They just said I gotta stop doing this. Doing what? Reading sports romances, like reading hockey romances, reading books in general. Like, there's no context. I don't know what you mean you gotta stop doing this. Because I will say sports romance is literally like my favorite subgenre of romance. So I feel like on a lot of them I am very biased, and I'm just into this. I think this will be my last one. This one says, DNF, am I outgrowing these romance books or what? What is happening here? And that's what I was just saying. I'm like, is it you're not liking romance anymore? Is it the book? Is it that it's hockey? Like, why are some people now saying like they don't like these books anymore? And I just find that fascinating. And I am like, sports romance is my bread and butter. I love it, and I find it so funny because so many people say that the reason that they don't read sports romance is because it talks about sports and they don't enjoy that. And I'm a sports girly, but I feel like they don't talk enough about sports. I always say, especially within hockey romances, I want more of them talking about like, you know, team bonding and them like going to games and what they're doing in the games and how many how many goals they're scoring, and just these like brawls they're having, and it doesn't happen. I feel like they have it as a backdrop, and that's just there to like reel you into the story. So I find that so interesting. That was an interesting one. Again, I said I didn't really feel like it was gonna have a lot of 1 stars, and it didn't. A lot of people really do love this book and this series, but The people that said that they didn't like it, it seems like it was because of how quickly the characters got together and them just not like vibing with their connection. So I'm like, again, fair. Okay, one of literally my favorite books series that I've read. I read this at the end of December. Insatiable. This one, holy crap, literally just read this over the course of a week and it was so good. So I feel like this is going to hurt people giving this book a 1 star, but I'd be curious why. If it's because of the topics that are in this book, if they didn't vibe with it, if it was too, you know, much trauma going on. Because if it's the trauma aspect, I can understand. This goes through, well, not necessarily this book, but it goes through a lot of things that these characters are going through, and I'd be very curious as to why some people gave this a 1 star. I gave this one I think a 4.5, I think. Okay. So this person said, the only sane person in this book is Kate's dad. Mind you, he's in a fucking asylum. The only sane one is Tobias? This is probably my favorite one I've read so far. And somebody at the bottom commented, this review is perfect. No, that's funny. That's funny. Now in this first book, there's a lot of toxicity going on, and especially with Kate, like there are just a lot of things that happen there. I'm like, dude, I cannot stand you at all, especially in that first book. Like Cade, I don't know if that's an unpopular opinion. I could not stand his ass. I hated him. Yeah, I'm gonna say what I said. I hated him in that first book. I did. But ooh, I'm not a smut girly, but the smut in that book, ooh, it was good. It was good. But them saying that the only person that's sane is Tobias. And he's probably the most insane out of everybody. Except some of the people that were doing some shitty stuff. If you know, you know. That's a heck of a way to start this out. That's funny. Okay. Oh, okay. So we have a doormat main character check. Tension, romance, angst, check. Just kidding. There's literally nothing in this book but pure smut. I don't care. I only like the first chapter. What? They only like the first chapter? Like, what? Like, they broke up 2 years. Wait, this person read this around the same time as me. Sorry. Sorry. Like, they broke up 2 years ago. And the first time he starts talking to her, and he isn't even talking to her. He is just insulting her, yet she is on her knees. No. The secondhand embarrassment I felt. Them only liking the first chapter is insane. Only the first chapter? No, there are past perspectives that are crazy in this book. What do you mean you only like the first chapter? Now the smut part, sure. Was he running all over her? Yeah. Did I still like that book? Yeah. So, I can't believe they said they only like the first chapter. That's probably why they gave it a 1 star. No. The first chapter? Hold on. This person at the bottom said, I saw a review saying that the only sane character in this book is locked up in the asylum, and I couldn't agree more. So they read the same review that I did. See, okay, these people that gave Insatiable a 1 star, are they continuing on to Voracious? Because Voracious is where it's at. If you're reading Insatiable and you're like, no, that's just smut. No, I only like the first chapter. Voracious, oh my God. They probably didn't continue on. But that's insane saying you only like the first chapter. No, that hurts. That hurts. Okay, here we go again with them saying this. All there was is smut. If they just kept their hands to themselves and had one civil conversation, this entire trilogy would be 5 pages long. I got fooled by book talk again. Hey, what the book talk stuff? You cannot be saying you got fooled. No. Now, I will say about the conversation thing, yes, that could have been solved. If this man would have just listened to her talk, we could have avoided so much. I will say I agree with that. I will not say that Book Talk lied because that's not true. There's a reason that this is one of the most popular dark romance trilogies ever. Ever. No, now on that last part, I don't agree. There we go. See, I can disagree with somebody. I can do it. I can do it, but I will say there was a lot of smut. I agree with you on that. Just, I'm too old for this bullshit. What part of the bullshit are they too old for? Like, I need context on some of these. They just said I'm too old for it. Like, the genre, the book, the drama. Which part? Okay, I'm curious about this one. 1 star still. So bad. I don't know where to start. And 4 stars and above, really? How? Why? Girl, right here. Right here. It says, this whole story is based on the miscommunication trope. No, that's real. That's real. Then it says, endless sex scenes like every other page. That's real. He stalks her, but doesn't know she has a stepbrother. I did say that. I was like, I didn't understand that part. See, this is what I say sometimes people make valid points. No, I did say that. I'm like, how do you not know she has a psycho stepbrother? What are you talking about? He's obsessed with her, but the author does nothing to describe his obsession. Not true. Now, I told you again I could disagree with people. Not true. I think that was pretty obvious. And then it says he's the assassin for a criminal group. The leader is a woman, and this woman is also the head of Scottish police. Oh, and she gives him drugs. I'm not reading that next part. No, and I don't think that they were trying to say that was funny. On that, I'm going to be like, what book were they reading? Because that was never described that way. That's giving more of like, this dark romance wasn't for you, and we weren't understanding what was going on, because she never said any of that was funny. No, that was actually quite uncomfortable. Okay. Yeah. That's just giving more that they didn't like it. I can understand. Like I said, I feel like this is one of those ones where it has a lot of trauma in it, and that could be really difficult to read. I'm just like, no, I don't know about, yeah, I don't know about that part. Last one. So my frontal lobe developed way too long ago for this bullshit. See, I feel like these 1 starred, outside of maybe that last one, I feel like they just didn't like the book. Them being like their frontal lobe developed and they couldn't like the book. Listen, my frontal lobe's developed too, and I love this book. Not the trauma. Oh my god. that was funny. See, 1 stars, sometimes you read them and they're just so funny. And I'm just like, again, where do people come up with what they say? Like, I don't know, that's so funny.